In this lesson, we're going to talk about some important properties of absolute value. And we start with reviewing the function, this absolute value function, and we understand that the rule of this function will take any input and then take the absolute value as output, right? So one of the operations is saying, okay, suppose now we know how to operate. Suppose we have input A, right? And we take absolute value of A and we get the output. For input B, right? And we can do the same. So we have two quantities, two inputs, right? And suppose we have another situation, right? You're going to encounter these in the future classes, even in this class, right? Suppose I'm going to do f of A plus f of B, right? And we're getting f of A plus f of B. That's equals to the absolute value of A plus the absolute value of B. We have noticed that the order of operation to get to this point is that we take individual absolute value first, and then we add them, right? So the order is first, right? Absolute value respectively. Second, sum. Okay, so let's look at another situation. Suppose I'm going to do f of A plus B. What is f of A plus B? Well, this says the input is A plus B. Okay, so the input is A plus B. A plus B. Okay, so A plus B, and then we give it to the function, the rule of the function applies. So it assigns to each element, this one element is A plus B. So we do A plus B first. And then the output will take this form. All right. Now, the order here, okay, the order here. First is the sum. Second, absolute value. Okay. Now the question is, are these two the same? Question. Right? Is this the same as f of A plus B? i.e., in this situation, that is, right, is the absolute value of A plus absolute value of B the same as the other one? Are they the same? okay? You may pause the video right now and think about it. Okay, give yourself as much time as possible to think about it. I'm gonna review the answer. I'm gonna review the answer. The answer is no, no, no. In this case, they're not the same. That is to say, right, i.e., right, these two, right, these two are not the same. They are not the same. But oftentimes, okay, common mistake. Oftentimes, when some of our students in the past, right, they see this and they would just do this. They just separate them. Whether it's A, B, or X, Y, Z, they do that. It's a very common mistake. And the other common mistake is that they will do A minus B, and they think that's going to be equals to the absolute value of A minus absolute value B, right? All of these are terrible, horrible mistakes. Terrible, horrible mistakes. I'm going to explain to you why. Why? You see, it looks so intuitive to do it, right? It looks very, very intuitive to do, but yet, please don't do it. Don't do it. So why this is wrong? Right? Why this is wrong? We talk about that mathematical truths. So first, let's review what's mathematical truths. Mathematical truths is always true. Always true. Otherwise, it cannot be called mathematical truths. Cannot be called mathematical truths. False ones, false. You only have to be false ones, false. And you can say, hey, this is true in the situation A, in situation B, and all the way to the situation Z. But it is not true on situation ZZ. Then it's false. So false ones, false, okay? So in order to demonstrate that this is a false, I'm just gonna give you a counterexample. I'm gonna give you a counterexample. So here it is, okay? Why this is wrong, okay? So before we explain this wrong, I'm gonna put some words in between to explain this. This is called sum of absolute values. Right? The order is the first we do absolute values respectively, and then add. The second one is absolute value of A plus B. This is called absolute value of a sum. So we do sum first, absolute value second, right? Now, let's see, when it is true. So we're gonna give you a counterexample, right? To demonstrate that this is false. I pick A equals to 3, B equals to -1. So we look at the sum of absolute value. Okay, it's the sum of absolute values. So absolute value of A is absolute value of 3. Absolute value of B is absolute value of -1. So we do the absolute value respectively and then add them up. The second one, we look at the absolute value of a sum, which is A plus B first, right? We do the inside first, and we get 2, and then we take absolute value. So in this case, in this one case, the sum of absolute value is not the same as absolute value of sum. Therefore, you see that statement is false, false ones, false. Okay, go back to our previous, to our beginning, right? So f of a plus b, okay? Attention. F of a plus b is not the same as f of a plus f of b. Okay, so this example also shows demonstrate that is also demonstrated. Okay, so let's look at the other one for subtraction. For subtraction, right? We talk about addition. How about subtraction? Right? How about subtraction? Similarly, right? So this will be like f of a minus b, right? And this is like f of a minus f of b, right? Are they always the same? No, false. So we have a counterexample right here. Okay, I've chosen a equals 7, b equals -3. When we work on the absolute value of difference, right? We do difference first, and then take an absolute value of the difference. And the other one is a difference of absolute value, which we're going to take the absolute value of the numbers individually, respectively, and then do the subtraction. And we found in this case, they're not the same. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Okay, so now we have also demonstrated, right? When you have f of a minus b, and this is false. False, it's false. Okay, so in summary, we have, this is true, this is true. Say not equal is true, and never ever use that, okay? And also never ever use these, okay? Don't use this. Don't use this, and don't use that. Don't use these. Okay, don't use that. Now, what is true then? Right? We look at the operations, adding, subtracting, they're false. How about multiplication, division? Multiplication, division, yes. When we multiply, it's true. When we multiply the absolute values, right? The absolute value of a product is the same as the product of absolute value. The absolute value of quotient is the same as a quotient of absolute values. And these are true. These are true. Of course, we provide the denominator cannot be 0. This is true, this is good, this is good. Summarizing about the absolute value operation, okay? So these are good. You can use these all day long, but not these. Don't you ever do it. Don't you ever do it. Okay, don't you ever do it. All right. So let me bring this guy on the other side. Okay, so this will be more, it's better. But anyway, so that's summarizing the absolute value operation, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. Multiplication, yes. Addition, subtraction, no, no, no. So absolutely not, absolutely not. And we also have some byproducts here. Okay, we have some nice byproduct. So what are these byproducts? Is that never ever use these unless you have linear function. You have linear functions. Okay, so I'm going to leave this here, but of course this needs to be explained. This needs to be explained. Okay, and we will explain this in the future. We will explain this in the future. Okay, but the absolute value function is a perfect example to illustrate that these are not true. These are not true. So don't use them. So unless they're linear functions. So I'm not going to elaborate on that in the future. Okay. And next I want to do some examples on absolute value. So here I copied and paste. And so we recap on the absolute value that we did in the previous video, right? As how we use these. How we use this, okay? You guys are going to need this for your calculus classes, not only Calc 1, but also Calc 2. Especially these two sentences I put here, okay? So if you haven't watched the previous video about absolute value, please do. That video is called Absolute Value Functions. So here I'm gonna give you some examples. Okay? Suppose I want you to simplify the absolute value of 1 minus pi plus 2 without using calculator. Okay? You start having questions of this sort next week. Okay? Now, when we look at this expression, right, we cannot use a calculator. So how do you combine 1 minus pi? Okay, how do you combine with 1 minus pi? Well, if you like to pause the video right now, please go ahead to do it. And I'm going to just go for it and you pause it and come back to look at my answer, okay? So here I'm gonna use think out aloud to explain to you. So first of all, we know that pi is a larger number in comparison with 1. So 1 minus pi is a negative number. And we also know that the absolute value of a negative number is its opposite. Okay, we know this. We know, right, the absolute value of a negative number is its opposite. And how does it apply to our situation here? The absolute value of a negative number. So the absolute value of a negative number, this negative number we're dealing with now is 1 minus pi. Right? The absolute value of 1 minus pi is its opposite. What's the opposite of 1 minus pi? What's the opposite of 1 minus pi? You just have to put a negative sign in front of 1 minus pi, right? So the absolute value 1 minus pi right? We know how to represent absolute value, right? So the absolute value of 1 minus pi is the opposite, is its opposite right here. Okay, and of course you can also open up the parentheses. You can open up the parentheses, right? Negative sign distributed, so -1 plus pi. Okay, and over here, you're gonna have what? It's actually pi minus 1. Okay, now, once we've done this, we can drop the absolute value of 1 minus pi because we know 1 minus pi is negative. And therefore, you can either substitute by the next step here, or you can also do just pi minus 1. Pi minus 1 plus 2. So in the end, you get a pi plus 1. That's how we apply. That's how we apply these observations. That's how we apply these observations. Okay. Now let's look at another example. Example number 2. Okay. So here we go. We get a absolute value of square root of 3 minus 2, right? And we also get to add 2 minus square root of 3. What do we do then? Right? Square root of 3 minus 2, we cannot use a calculator here, okay? Square root of 3 minus 2 this is a negative number and this is a positive number. How do we know? Well, I'm going to put a think out loud here. This is basically the scratch paper, right? How do I know? Because I know that 3 is less than 4, right? I know 3 is less than 4. If 3 is less than 4, then I take absolute value, right? I'm sorry, I take a square root on both sides. If I take square root on both sides, it is still true. But the latter equals to 2. Therefore, root 3 is less than 2. Root 3 is less than 2. Now I know root 3 minus 2 is negative. Is negative. So we're going to use that sentence one more time. The absolute value of a negative number, right? The absolute value of a negative number, which is this is a negative number, is its opposite, right? So the absolute value of a negative number in this case is our root 3 minus 2. And its opposite of it is just you put a negative sign in front of it. That's all. And of course, this is going to give you 2 minus root 3. 2 minus root 3. Right? You distribute and then you did something similar here. How about 2 minus root 3? 2 minus root 3 is positive, right? 2 minus 3 is positive. Is positive. 2 minus root 3 is positive. What do we know about the absolute value of positive number? the absolute value of a positive number or non-zero number, non-negative number, right? The absolute value of a non-negative number is the same as a number, and we have a positive number here. So the absolute value of this number is the same as the number, is the same. What does it mean, the same? Well, same means the same. Therefore, right, the absolute value of 2 minus root 3 is the same as that. Okay. And of course here, the absolute value of root 3 minus 2, right? We already did it there, right? Is its opposite, and it is 2 minus root 3. Okay, so you can see that. Okay, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Okay, so now we can come back, right? All of these, you do it on scratch paper. You do it on scratch paper. When you show your work to the professors, and this is what you do. Okay, this is how you show your work. You have a lot of thinking, you have lots of thoughts, but you don't necessarily put everything in front of your professor. You just give them the key elements, right? So here, I would just take this part or the latter part, right? Plus, and this is the absolute value of positive number. So it's the same. So I'm gonna just put it the same, all right? On this part, you could have replaced this guy by 2 minus root 3, but you can do it now. 2 minus root 3. 2 minus root 3, sorry. Okay, and plus 2 minus root 3. Okay, and now we can combine. You can see all these effort we're making here is to get rid of the absolute value sign, because with absolute value sign, you cannot do adding, subtracting arbitrarily as you wish. You have to drop the absolute value sign. So now we have 2 plus 2, that's a 4. 4 minus 2 times square root of 3. Okay, so you will probably see similar answers. Okay, and we need to know how to operate it. We need to know how to operate it. So these examples are designed for you to apply what? To apply the words and to apply the form, and as they're associated with the definition of function, let's see if I have any more examples too. I think we have covered every kind, okay? So I'm just going to make sure that you guys understand this. Okay, give me feedback and let me know if you have any questions, so I can make videos, I can make recordings to help you. And also, please show up in my office hours, and I'll be happy to help you in person that way. So thank you for watching.